gorgeous faces. It's so nice to see everyone tonight. We have a couple of people that said they're going to be joining us late, so we are going to launch in. Hello, hello. It's so good to see all of you guys. I've got a special treat for you. I have Erin Moon, and there's so much. There's just so much. I did cheat a tiny bit and chat a bit before the call, but nothing really exciting, I promise. So and guys, we're going to be very careful. I'm going to be ruthless to end on time tonight. So get your quirky questions ready ahead of time if you've got any. And remember, nothing that we can find on a Google search. Let's not waste our time. Let's go straight for the jugular. I mean, the good stuff. Erin, 10-year-old Erin.
10-year-old Erin.
What did you want? What were your dreams? Who was 10-year-old Erin? Introduce us to her.
Yeah. So it's boring in the way of like, I've always wanted to be an actor. So
were you in Canada? Did you grow up in Canada?
Yeah. So I grew up in Calgary, Alberta, to farm folk and small town folk, just on the kind of, I think we were one district away from the country, and not far from where my mom's farm was where she grew up. And my parents, like, they tried to, we were riding horses. Like, I rode horses since I was 4 years old. And my mom would make us, or mom, I should say, because that's how I call my mom. But we would go riding, and my mom wouldn't let us ride horses with saddles. So we had to ride with bareback pads, because she was determined to make us, because we didn't get to ride all year round. We only rode in the summer at a campground that we had had horses. And she was like, nope, they can't ride in saddles, because she was determined that we would be great riders, like what she was growing up, because you just got on a horse. Like, she was like, go get the horse. So you got on the horse.
Wow.
Yeah, and we ended up actually helping to take out the trail rides eventually, because we just were so active with the horses. So that's
it's like Anne of Green Gables or something, like an idyllic childhood kind of.
Yeah, it was the like, go, they would say go play, and we would go, and they knew we would come back for feeding. and then we like at midday, and we'd have horsey hands and dirt and everything, and we like kind of wash, and then we'd go back out, and you just had to be home to be fed, or when it got dark. And in Canada in the summer, it's like 10 o'clock at night before it gets dark in the summer. So even when we were young, we were able to stay out really late.
Brothers and sisters, big family.
Yeah, with my one older sister, younger brother, sisters 2.5 years older, brothers 4.5 years younger. And so I'm the middle child, and I'm very much a middle child. I'm like, no conflict. Please, can we all just get along? And yeah, I always wanted to be an actor. I think I watched Shirley Temple when I was little, and
like the Sunday shows with I used to love those. Like, nobody was allowed to talk because Shirley Temple was on.
Yes. Yeah. And I watched Annie, and I was like, oh, shut up. I want to be Annie for the rest of my life. Like, and so it was that or a marine biologist. So for whatever reason, I mean, I think a lot of kids wanted to be marine biologists or want to be marine biologists.
Can I ask why? I heard that somebody said that about another kid right now. The thought never entered my mind. What is it about marine biologists?
I think like in elementary school, we had to pick a marine animal to write a report on. And I picked a manatee, and like, I saw a dolphin show or something, and that was it. Like, it was actor or marine biologist. and I was like, and I ended up like pursuing biology and stuff like that a bit. I have like a scientific brain. I like things like that. I teach anatomy to yoga instructors now. That's the way I exercise that kind of maven part of my brain. But yeah, I always wanted to do that. And then my parents, it's mostly just like a lot of getting kicked outside. I was good at school. I was a nerd. Like,
so that bred independence. Your parents trusted you. You were able to, did you have chores and hard work ethic built in?
We ate what was on the table, or we didn't eat. We were like, every day the family ate at 5:30. We played games on Sunday nights as a family often.
Okay,
or
so
watched,
what
like,
were you bad at? It's too perfect. Everyone's got a flaw.
what was I bad at as a kid?
Or
I mean,
even when you got older, did you have problems adjusting when you got older? What were your dark nights of the soul moments? Things you had to
yeah,
change?
I did get, I had that weird thing of, like, I would pursue the goal, and then when I got it, I was like, I'd get scared when or if it happened, because I did kind of have everything blocked out and I had a lot of support. It's not like my family was a family that didn't argue.
Mm.
I was the middle child who definitely was trying to keep the peace. But I didn't, I was a very, I had a really blessed life, like a grandma who lived nearby who helped take care of us, and then life served things later, a lot
Yeah,
later.
later. Were you
Yeah.
equipped to handle them later?
I think so, because I I knew how to love and be loved, and I think that's a lot of what gets you through
Oh, I
the
love
really
that.
brutal times.
I love that. I knew how to love and be loved.
Yeah.
I think that pretty much covers it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's a honestly, it's a freaking privilege, because that's not something that everybody gets taught early on, and that's not something that everybody has early on. So regardless of any, arguing or vitriolic or argumentative kind of family aspects that we had, at the end of the day, we had safety and love, and that was very, very lucky. And like my late husband, yeah, he had a very different life and upbringing than I did. He had a lot of, like, love and joy, but the kind of safety element was as much there. So it's interesting to kind of watch that trajectory and how it plays out in people's lives. And so up until my husband got sick, my trials and triumphs were like, my grandma died, but she lived till she was 80, and that was spectacular.
But I mean, the thing
I
is,
lost friends to suicide and those kind of things that
yeah.
happen. But underneath that, I've had that really special support system.
But do you know what strikes me immediately?
Mm.
I didn't realize about myself, but I think I always did. I always gave kudos to people for their tragedies. I'm always loving the cracks in people's souls and the way they sew those cracks together and become artists. I was always attracted to the artists with the, if you tell me you're a bohemian addicted to something up till 4 a.m, but you create great art, suddenly you're like an interesting person with layers. But if I'm honest, I look at people that maybe didn't have cracks, didn't have things happen, and I think, well, not because I worked in corporate offices before, and I think, well, but you can never look at that, because the minute you say the words, and I'm not going to bring that on here, but, obviously, but the minute you say the words late husband, it's a slap in the face, because to me, with my little assumptions about somebody having a wonderful life and this and that, every single person has cracks.
Yeah. And we
Just,
don't get out of this life without it, regardless of anything. And I think being fundamentally aware of that, and the balance of, when you're at different points in your life, your capacity to hold that space for others is, I hope that it grows, that it doesn't, that those the slings and arrows of an outrageous fortune don't shut us down, that they open us up into community. And so, before I had greater awareness of people's suffering, I was there for people who did suffer. I had the bandwidth and the ability to be there. And so, and then as somebody who has been through pretty immense loss and tragedy, now at this point in my life, I have that capacity for those who haven't had those cracks yet.
It's funny you say that.
To also hold space for them, and they're like, it's gorgeous. Naivete and innocence is a beautiful time of life if you're lucky enough to get it, because a lot of people don't get it.
Yeah.
And then for those who have had really immense tragedy and really immense trauma and suffering, I have a greater understanding and depth of awareness of even how to approach that. Because I think, like, in our society, which does live with a lot of privileges, sometimes people don't even know how to deal with when somebody has tragedy in their life.
Yeah.
And so also, it gives you a vocabulary. And
also, having had the crack in your life, if you go back to the moment you say you were very lucky early in life before things happened, you could still be an interesting, evolved, as you say, empathetic person, because I think what determines it isn't what happens to you in life, but how much you've pursued and thought and empathized and kept your eyes open. You could have had a quote unquote blessed life, but if your eyes are open, although it's not as deep of a layer as it is once something happens to you.
Yeah.
But still, it's, I discount the easy things. And I heard a quote recently, I'm fascinated by it. It's, I can do hard things. I never, ever, I would have been horrified if somebody said that to me like a year ago. But why would I want to do hard things? But I love it. I do love it.
Well, and like you said, like we don't escape this life without that. I'm not going to lose less people in my life. I'm only going to lose more people in my life. And some people are like, wow, that's super dark. And I'm like, it's super realistic. And I would rather love the shit out of them now and then be in grief that is just love transformed than not to love those people.
The triumph is not letting yourself close down.
Yeah, it's like, I'd rather be a mess. I'd rather be a glorious mess and be in a place of love, support, and nurturing. And nurturing is also just like a fundamental aspect of how I came into this world. Like, I've always been a high empathy, high sensitivity child. I was like that child who would cry before I'd get mad at you because I would put myself in your shoes and then I couldn't even get mad. And like, I've always been that kind of, made to be an artist person.
Yeah. You were doing method before you were.
Before I had anything to be method about. Yeah. So I do think like it just is, there's some of it is just how you come into the world, then it is the nurture as well. And then it's just like life. This is life. We have this bizarre idea about aging and death in our society that makes zero sense. It is completely unconnected to nature and unconnected to reality.
Okay, now I'm going to ask, we've got 2 questions already, but I'm going to start with the second one. I hope you guys don't mind because it flows with what we were just talking about. And then I'm going to move to the other one, which is a tiny bit more lighthearted. Adam says, fellow Canadian here.
Hey,
how do
Adam.
you handle? Hi, Adam.
I think he's in Vancouver even.
Are you in Vancouver, Adam?
I am, yes.
Yay!
Just off Main Street.
Oh, awesome. I'm in Kitts.
So we're surrounded by Canadians today. Okay, so Adam says, how do you handle working in a mostly US focused creative industry while living in Canada? What challenges have you faced not being in an industry hotspot, e.g. LA or New York City?
Yeah, that's a great question. So because I'm a dual citizen and because I lived for 13 years in New York City before I moved to Vancouver, I don't have the same learning curve and figuring out that some other people who are coming in as Canadians and new now into the industry. So I've been in the industry for 17 years. So I've been in when we were still cracking the back of books and photocopying them. And you had to go to get your script. And actually I got in just after they stopped using tape, but they were still doing tape side turns. Like I remember spending hours going and start side 2 at the same point, because you have to turn the tape over.
When did you start? Like how long ago was this?
So I started at Recorded Books in 2005 in New York. And it was my actor survival job. So they loved hiring actors to be directors and then taught us how to do post. So we did proof, edit, master, but like we really had to be trained on how to do that. And we asked a lot of questions. And then directing was a little bit easier. They called us engineers, but I've never been a sound engineer, and nor would I ever say that I'm a sound engineer. I was a director, but it was like everybody who was working there didn't need much direction. Like once in a while I'd work with somebody who was, say, a celeb or somebody brand new or younger, and they'd need a little bit more guidance, or I'd stop them a little bit more often and go, let's do that sentence again, or you know what, just do that sentence again, stress this word. And that's honestly, for the most part, what directors are doing anyway, they're read-alongs.
But I'm hearing in the last call this came up, they were saying that directors don't even have time to do that anymore, that most of the time they're just proofing now because they're
it depends.
crunched.
It still depends on who they're working with
Okay.
and what they believe they can get out of that person. So, and when I would stop people, like I would literally, it would be like a one-off. It's almost like I caught a word they said wrong, like a misread, because I'd be like, because the sentence just didn't make sense because they stressed the wrong word.
Okay.
So I was like, and sometimes I wouldn't even tell them, depending on the actor. If it's like George Guidall, first of all, I'm going to really think before I stop him because he doesn't stop. But I'm also, if
I'd be afraid to talk at all.
Oh my God. He rolled his eyes at me a couple of times. He was like, Moon. But I was like, let's just do that sentence again. And I was like, I'm probably not going to do that many times. George, he's so good. And he's such a nice man. So it was like, I got to work with like Robin Miles, George Guidall, Dion Graham, like just Susan Torren, Carol Manda, Rosenblatt, like Johnny Heller, like every Cynthia Darlow, like everybody who made this industry, I got to watch for 4.5 years, or work with for 4.5 years, and or listen to an edit. So it was like freaking amazing. So it was a very different, when I finally like got up the guts to go to Claudia and be like, so, and she's like, yeah, I've got a book for you. And I was like, oh yay, because she'd seen me in a show off Broadway and knew that I wasn't just saying I was an actor. But it was also because when we started narrating, we stopped doing the other stuff, because at the end of the day, that's what I was an actor.
Yeah.
And it was, I could do, less books and get the same pay that I was getting for that work, because at that time it was just above minimum wage job. But it gave benefits, which was huge.
Is it hard? Because you said something, and I do know this is true, okay? But I'm finding it very, very difficult. When it's what you love to do more than anything on earth, and everything else pales in comparison. Like I just got a voiceover. Oh my gosh, I have to answer them. A voiceover thing. Big job.
Write it down.
Do this demo. And all I'm thinking is, whatever. I'll get back. All I want to do is the one thing. And I know you were saying, and I know this is true on paper, that if you don't have like a well-nourished, exciting life outside of the booth, then you will become a boring, one-dimensional narrator. But life pales in comparison. Like brushing my teeth, I still do.
Yeah.
But
story, well, that's the thing about story, right? We don't write story about the boring shit. We don't write about the mundane. We write, read, listen to music, read poetry, watch theater, watch TV about the most extraordinary parts of being human. That's what we're exploring. We're exploring what we do when life is huge. And I think that's awesome. And I think it can become a little bit of an addiction.
It is an addiction, but it's a bad one, isn't it? You have to do the other stuff.
We stop what's called savoring the simple. And so one of the things like I learned in my positive psychology training was talking about what savoring and practice of savoring is, which is in a way it is a mindfulness practice, where when we become like addicted to the big, the symphonic, we stop seeing the beauty in a leaf that's falling from a tree, and we stop seeing it's like that first few bites of the meal are amazing, and then you stop tasting it. You don't savor the rest of the meal. You start talking, you have other things, you're getting excited. So I think that practicing savoring, and there is actual studies about this, it actually helps with dopamine uptake and dopamine release. And that's your anticipatory, oh yeah, I want it, drug that's in your body. It's actually the thing that kind of brings up the most joy. So the
Yeah, and that's
anticipation,
fascinating. Dopamine increases your need. It doesn't increase your satisfaction. People think dopamine is a hit of what you want. Dopamine is more of wanting.
yeah,
Dopamine makes you want more. And you know what you just said was really, it put it together in my mind. So the moments outside the booth are like the moments in between the sentences in the booth. They're just as important as the words you say.
yeah. It's all the thing that all the stuff of life that didn't make it into the book.
That sucks.
Yeah, but it's also, and I'm going to add to that, life outside of the stories that we involve ourselves in. If you live that life and live it with unscheduled time and with a little bit of saying yes, and you live a little more of it, you open up the opportunity for there to be magic. So that
Yeah,
magic,
I know you're
isn't
right about
just
that.
found
And in
in,
America, they teach you, and I'm so pissed off. They teach you when you're growing up in America that just work really, really hard. The harder you work, the more you'll get all the things and succeed in life and do the things you want. So I worked harder than anyone. I worked, I'm still doing it. And they told me that if I dieted, life would be perfect. So basically, neither of those things turned out to be true. Now it's like 100 years down the road, and they're saying, no, but you've got to stop and smell the flowers. But nobody mentioned that, like in the 90s.
because it doesn't fit with being on the wheel, right? Like if you're going to create a society where there is few people who benefit at a high level and most of the other people are working at a very high level, then they don't have room to smell the roses and to realize that life is more than work.
Yeah.
To do things like go to a 4-day work week, to do things like take 2 months off in the summer, as a lot of the rest of the world, because I'll say Canadian kind of mindset around work is very similar to the US. And so that, like, I mean, now, like, there's a lot of places in Europe where you do 2 months off and you do a 4-day work week. And there's like, where there's a mentality that is about life, that work is part of it, as opposed to being part of the grill, that, or like that. All I'm picturing is like, there was this kid's book I had that was trolls, and it had these moving parts on it, and you could like move that wheel. And I just think of that image just came to my head. I'm a very visual person.
But
So
it's
like
vacation, right? I mean,
wheel.
I'm in love with this thing called Bracanti Home, and she talks about homemaking, and she talks about, you know, for each season, the puttery delights of such and such. And I recently treated myself to like her book on summer. And the way she was describing summer is like when you're a kid, you know, you go swimming and you have fairy lights outside, and I thought, and I hate summer, right? I just can't wait for the world to get back to normal so I can get back to work, and like, you know, I work through it. And I thought, I remember that long, delicious summers in Italy, eating like fresh food. And if you don't get any of that, you're not protecting your muse. And that brings us to the first question we had, which ties in perfectly. Sean would like to know, what was the funniest unexpected event when you were on vacation?
Oh, what was the recently, or just like any vacation I've been on?
Any vacation.
Any vacation.
The funniest thing that ever happened that was unexpected on any vacation.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah,
such a
see,
good
they're
question.
good, these guys. They're good. This is not something you're going to find on Google when you Google Erin Moon. Except you will now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm just like, my brain is whipping through places I've been, because I've done a lot of travel.
Do you take vacations regularly?
Yeah, I mean, obviously not in the last 2 years. a lot of my vacations were work oriented before. So I would like be there for teaching in a yoga teacher training, and then I would take a week afterwards to like go explore and play.
How did yoga start? Okay, I'll let you think about the vacation question.
It's a really good question, Sean, and I want to.
Yes, it's a good question, and I'll give you time to. But how did your yoga start?
About the same time as, I think, a year or two before I got to Recorded Books. Actually, I'd gotten back from a tour with the acting company in New York, and then I think some people, in theater school, we did some like sun salutations in a voice class and stuff. And a couple people were taking some yoga classes. And I remember thinking, oh, that's really interesting. And then when I did this tour, a couple people were hosted yoga classes as kind of warm-ups for our show. And we'd been on a bus a lot. So we did a few things and I was like, oh, I really like this. I've always, I was really into gymnastics as a kid, and I liked, moving my body in that way. And then I got back, and there was this yoga studio in New York, right in Times Square area, called Sonic Yoga. And it was run by Jonathan Fields and Lorna Hanna. And they actually started it right after September 11th. And I got to New York about 4 months after that. And it became this haven for a lot of actors and stuff. And they had a program where if you worked at the desk for 4 hours a week, you could get free yoga. And I was like, wow. Great, because I'm broke. I come from blue collar people. My late husband came from blue collar people. We were blue collar actors through and through. We had to work for everything we had. And so I started working there. And then they had a teacher training program that you could also work off the tuition by working in their office, kind of.
Yeah.
So I did that. And right when I got certified as a yoga instructor was actually right when I started at Recorded Books. So I worked at Recorded Books, went and did gigs like twice a year, like theater gigs, and then taught yoga. And so that's kind of how that started.
Has yoga informed your acting?
Yeah. And me as a coach, and me as a human being in every possible way. Yeah. And now I teach, like I've been teaching teachers for about a decade now. And I focus on anatomy because I like the bits and pieces.
Yeah.
But that's actually changed. Well, and that's actually changed over time too. Now, the way that I teach anatomy has changed from being like this bone's connected to the into something that's a little bit more fundamentally supportive of the tradition of yoga and yogic philosophy and stuff. But it's made me, again, with that mindfulness awareness. And then I took like the positive psych training, and I've taken a lot of other trainings. I'm actually a yoga therapist, is what the title is called now, which is just, some Western people deciding to call something that's already therapeutic and doing a certification for it. It's kind of dumb, but but what it is just a focus on the healing aspects and looking at all people and how to bring these philosophies and ideology to those people. And so what it's done for me as an actor is what we've been talking about, which is made me fundamentally aware of how I conduct and live my life, how I have the opportunity, if and when I do these practices, to not only be in the movie, but to watch the movie of my life, that I get to actually be observer and actor in my life. And that heightens, I think that heightens with age, but I also think that heightens with meditation practices. And that makes me, more full in the moment actor. And I'm not as raw, as like crazy about, I can drop my shit a lot easier.
Which is key to, and the funny thing you say is, because I'm always fascinated by time, because when you're a child, and I think it's because they're mindful and they're trying new experiences all the time,
They have
Like
no
one summer.
perspective. They're just
Exactly.
like, ah!
Exactly. But is perspective doing us any good? Because the last 3 years have taken me about a week.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So if that's gone so fast, how fast is the rest of it going to go? You're going to wake up tomorrow like 90,
Yeah.
so does
Well,
mindfulness help that?
yes. So I actually say that mindfulness is, oh, what is it called in Spanish culture? It's the tree of life. So
Yeah.
it's the well that, you drink from and you get eternal life. So the way to slow life down is to be mindful, is to be in the movie and watching it. Because if you're only in the movie's happening to you. If you're in the movie and watching it, everything kind of slows down, so you get to be in both places. You get to be like, oh wow, look at that
Objectively
happening.
observing it.
Because it's not like it takes out the being the actor part of your life. You don't get to exit that one until you do your final exit. Like you are living your life no matter what you do. But it does slow things down. And I will say, like, after my husband was diagnosed and through his illness and then losing him, because it was like jumping strings, if string theory is true in our life, who knows, there's a billion things that could be true. Anybody, a fairy could arrive right now and I'd be like, yes, of course. But
I like that. I like the fact that there are possibilities everywhere.
Yeah, but there's it's like I jumped strings. Like, Erin, that life before that happened, it's still being lived, but I jumped over to this string, and this is the one that I didn't recognize. So I've been transplanted into a string that it wasn't innate to me. And so what that does is it means that I actually have to learn how and what living in this string is like now. And I don't feel like time goes by super fast anymore.
Another way to make time go really slowly is narrate a book that for some reason you're not suited to.
You're like,
you've never
dear
ever
God.
seen a moment stretch.
Yeah, you're like, somebody help me. Yeah.
I love that. I love that theory. There's another one of those series, Transurfing, that I don't know if you ever heard of it, but that goes along those lines. It's a bit like the string theory thing. It's the theory. I mean, the only two things I know about transurfing is that you're living different. You can live different lives, kind of like Quantum Leap, that old show, when we were kids.
Oh, yeah.
And the other thing is that there are pendulums. So you can get carried away by a pendulum if you're not kind of like living your. And so like a corporation could be a pendulum, or a bunch of people talking about somebody could be a pendulum, but it's not necessarily you.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting.
I feel like this life is plenty.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm just learning how to live this one.
What about the vacation?
I'm still trying to think. Like, I've had really cool experience. I'm trying to think of funny, particularly. And God, just for the life of me, I'm trying to think. Like, I've had profound moments on vacation. I'm trying to think of like particularly like amusing things that have happened.
I never understood vacations, because every time I've gone on a vacation and you love it, I've never understood why people go back. Like, if it's so much better than your regular, it was like people that work 5 days at a job they hate so they can get Saturday and Sunday off.
Yeah.
Right? Quit the job.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Oh, okay. I did think of one. I do have one. So Stafford is my late husband's name. So we were backpacking in Ireland. We were babies. We were like just both out of grad school, like just like basically buying time while my fiance visa came through.
Where did you meet him? Where did you meet him?
At Colorado Shakespeare Festival.
Okay. Was he an actor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we were off in Ireland, and we were hitchhiking around Ireland, and we would camp for a couple of days, and then we'd get in a hostel just to clean up, and then camp for a couple of days. And we were trying to cross on the far southwest side of Ireland. There's these mountains. Now, I'm a Rocky Mountain girl, so I say that with big air quotes. There's mountains around from the southwest corner up to Kenmare area. And we were looking for a hitch, and we'd been out. Usually we got hitches really fast, and even
like
parents
hitchhiking, like hitchhiking.
Yeah.
With strangers.
Oh yeah. And you know how many parents picked us up? Single people picked us up a lot. A mom with her child in the back picked us up.
I've narrated way too many psycho thrillers.
A dad with her yeah, you have. That's true. That's true. Basically all that's happening with you right now is danger.
Yeah, I'm thinking the very bad ending.
Yeah.
Even the woman with the stupid kid, something's going to happen. She's got the crazy boyfriend. She's in cahoots.
No, I had like children falling asleep on my lap. It was amazing. So that's what was happening in the early aughts in Ireland, because it was the early aughts. So we had been waiting and waiting and waiting for a hitch, and usually we didn't wait very long. It had been 2 hours. And then this couple drove by and they finally picked us up. And we're in the back seat, and there's like this huge man, and his fingers were like, I remember his fingers specifically, they were like working hands, where his fingers were huge. Like I've never seen working hands quite like that, and he worked in iron or something like that. He was that kind of guy. And they started driving, and they were like, oh, what do you know, where are you staying tonight? We're like, oh, we're just going to pitch our tent somewhere. If you find us a soccer pitch or a football pitch, we'll camp on the football pitch, because it was November in Ireland. And you've
just gone and told these strangers that nobody knows where you are, and you're going to be camping in the middle of nowhere.
Can you take us across the mountains? And that's basically, they were like, there's no town for the next 2 hours. And so we saw them have this like little private conversation in the front seat. And then they say, well, we have a rental. They were British, actually. They were from Lancaster. And they said, would you like to stay with us in our cabin? It's just outside of Kenmare, or we were Kilkenny, where we were heading. And we were like, we just kind of paused. And then he and I had one of those like conversations without words, because we're like, is this the decision where we die?
Yes.
Like, is this the moment where we die? Like, our parents are going to be like, and then they died in Ireland.
Yes.
And so we had the like, meh. So we said yes. And I think all 4 people in the car just kind of sat with that for a moment, because everybody's like, who's gonna kill whom? Like, who is the killer among us? Mm-hmm. They don't know if we are, we don't know if they are. So they drive to their little cabin up in the mountains.
I can hear Erin Moriarty.
Yeah. Totally. And then they went up the long hill into the mountains. And we get up there, and they were the most beautiful hosts. And the thing that we gave them, they gave us a place to stay, a meal that night, and a meal the next morning. And we taught them how to play asshole. The card game Asshole. Oh,
I've missed that one.
Yeah.
Is that Canadian?
I know it was my late husband was the one who taught it. So we played Asshole with this British couple in the mountains in Ireland. So I think that one's funny just because, we didn't get killed, and we taught them the most American game ever, which was like rude and how to be a jerk in the middle of a card game. So
I'm gonna have to look that one up. That sounds it sounds very good.
And I say that and I'm a dual citizen, so I'm both. I have that within me as well.
I love the because traveling changes you. It changes who you are. Like I sometimes I run into people, from where you grew up, and it's just, I'm not saying it changes you for the best or for the worst. You just different, completely different. You realize for every mile you travel, you become. So you coach as well, don't you? Mm-hmm. And what is it you run into when you're coaching people? I mean, what do you try to impart to them, and what do you wish they understood that you don't think they do?
I think most often it's settling people's nervous systems and the understanding that part of the anxiety they're feeling, especially newer people, is because they've jumped before they've actually learned how to do the thing. So they don't know how to do the performance end of it, let alone what the basic needs of tech are, and that they don't have to do all the tech, that there's actually a real high importance of hiring sound engineers to do your editing, please God. And because you're also building a business, and like, it's like, feels like this solo business, and it's not a solo business. Like, if you hire a sound engineer right at the beginning, and like, you start that relationship, they're going to be a person who hires you later. Like, almost all the good sound engineers I know become producers, and they hire me to do books now. So, and if you look at all the casting people, if you look at all the producers, so many of those people are sound engineers. They are people who started as sound engineers. They are not actors who switched into being producers. So just those kind of things. So, so I feel like a lot of what I end up doing is just helping people kind of settle that idea that I've got to race into this thing because I'm excited about it. Like, to not kill the excitement. The excitement is gorgeous and exactly right. And let's not make your excitement into anxiety and kill the thing you love. Because so many artists kill the thing they love because they started out as a hobby, or they start out as like, I'm going to do this as my work. And they're racing before they have shoes, before they have socks, before they've done any training. Like, you don't run a marathon by running sprints.
And
it's doing
funny.
Auditions.
It's twofold, isn't it? They've got to have the tools, the technique, and the training as well. But then they also have to. But they've got to do the art. It's what we were saying before the call. They forget, then they get into their first dry spell and they forget that they're artists. And when I said this to another room, and I saw their eyes roll to the back of their heads. I said, do a public domain book, because the whole, we're not getting any work, I have to wait till someone gives me work, drives me crazy. Do demos. Do a public domain, get in the booth and narrate. That's what you want to do, right? Narrate. Or you just want to make money. Because if you just want to make money, there's better ways to do it.
Yeah, do Learning Ally. There's plenty of ways, or do a book just for yourself, but do it in your booth, doing your punch and roll. Like, to every coaching student I have and everybody I teach, I say, like, how about before you engage in any sort of paid or non-paid work, something where you have to deliver somebody else's baby back to them after holding it for a while. Like, I think we're aunts and uncles of books. Like, I feel like I'm a book auntie. It is not my story. It is not the thing that I created, but I'm going to help nurture that baby into the world. I'm going to be a really good auntie, a good community member.
And no matter what the book is, you signed up for it, you make it special.
Wholeheartedly. And so why not just practice by doing an entire book? Don't ever put it out there because you don't have the rights to do so, but get in your booth and do a whole book, not an audition, not a chapter or two, a whole book top to bottom, because you don't have to pay for the editor. It's never going to go out into the world before you ever engage in trying to get paid or unpaid, if it's royalty share, whatever, Learning Ally work. Because then, you have started to build neural pathways, and neural pathways take a while. They take a while to get in there. It's called a pathway. A pathway isn't going through something once. A pathway is multiple times down the same road, down the same road, down the same road, until your body's got the rhythm. Your mind and heart and soul are open enough and settled enough to be vulnerable, to actually live in moment to moment vulnerability, so that when you do engage in that work, you're actually ready to deliver it. You're actually, like, artistically ready to deliver it.
And you can do fun things at that point. If you get to, once you get to the point that it's like driving a car, that it's not consciously having to, like, think about doing the actual job. It's like driving a car. then you can consciously think about the fun stuff, you've risen above the technique and you can think about acting, right?
Well, and that's the thing, like the feedback that I'll get from a lot of coaching students is, oh, why didn't I see that? Oh, why didn't I see that? And I say, part of it is because you're getting a coaching right now and it's scary.
Yeah.
So part of what you're not seeing is because you're just scared because I'm here. But part of that specificity of performance where every sentence is a lived experience, as opposed to a general feeling that's being plonked on top of narration. That's easy to see when I'm coaching over here. Is that you get more and more specific when you're more and more settled and practiced. So that just means that life that you're talking about, that like bing, 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 bing that happens in a paragraph. The whole paragraph is not a thought. Each sentence is a thought and a feeling and an experience.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you need to be like, bing, bong, like, don't tell me how you feel, just feel it, like be on your own journey.
Just be there, like Johnny Heller's always saying, and Paul Rubin, just be there.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's hard to be there when you're fighting yourself.
Yeah.
So fighting yourself means probably not enough practice before you have the pressure of delivering.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like it goes back to that ideology in the society of like, I've got to work hard. I've got to be on the reel. I've got to like get to the top. I got to I have to be working to be successful. And it's like, no, you don't. You have to be living your life. That's it. All the other stuff is extra.
Yeah.
But you got to live your life to be an artist. You can't just live your art. You're going to be, like we were saying earlier, just going to be a boring artist.
Fine, I'll start leaving the flat again.
Yeah. Go look at the trees. Go look at the fun people who live in.
I might go on the balcony. I think that's far enough. I'll put up fairy lights though.
There you go. Walk in the dark, scare yourself a little.
So what do you love the most? Do you what kind of book, when you get it, do you get like so excited about and you can't believe you've got this book and you can't believe it's you? What books give you those moments?
I'm actually revisiting one right now. There's a series I've been on for, I think, like 6 years, and it's fantasy romance. Romance is definitely the second to the urban fantasy of it. And it follows a woman who has been through extraordinary early childhood trauma in her life. And it really is the story about her working to invite back, or invite at all, trust and love back into her life. And that means like community and friendship and people who care about her and her caring about herself. And in the middle of it, she's a mage PI. So she like has all these incredible magical abilities.
You got me right there. That
so much. Just because like the idea, because I get to be her, right? And I've been her for so long. And I get to like, I get to pretend that I can do these things. And it's very exciting. So I let that, and then YA to me lights me up every time. Like that, the story of coming of age, the story of understanding and learning, the story of growing perspective, I just adore. So like YA, that, and then I also really like mysteries because it's just fun to navigate as a narrator, because our job is to not tell the most important parts of the story, and if anything, to lead people astray.
My favorite ones,
astray that they know what's going on.
Exactly. My favorite ones are when the psycho killer has a few moments early in the book, but you're not supposed to know who he is, but you have to, or she, but you have to voice it without giving away whether it's a he or she. It's you got.
I just did one where it happens over 30 years, no more, because she's 50 by the end of it. Yeah, like it's like from the 70s to now, and I had to voice some of the characters when they were young, and then I have to voice a character that is just called the monster, and then I have to voice some of the younger characters as they've gotten older. And the reveal meant that I, as a narrator, needed to be so freaking careful, because it was like a chapter by chapter POVs, some third person, some first person, in the past, in the present, that I had to be so careful about how I navigated the character voices. And I had to do character voices because there was a lot of, it was important to the story.
Yeah.
And so I love that just as a puzzle.
I love that.
And making sure that I'm a good story auntie.
I just did one where the girl was in the killer's head, and you know the voice, and I'm afraid, like, I'm so blasé. People send me auditions, and I do actually. I know they think I forget. I do the audition, I forget, or I say yes, put me forward. Literally always shocked when the book comes back to me. Except this one I wanted so badly I couldn't even pretend. I was like, yes, please, yes, please. And then they gave it to me. And then it was like, I'm afraid they got way too many eager emails from me, double checking that, 8,000 books later. Okay? Are you sure you want this? When you love it so much that you just, it has to, you know what I mean? You prepare too much and then like get too excited. Yeah. That's his job, isn't it? That's what's wonderful. What do you want? What do you want someday with like all your heart?
It's so interesting. Like, and again, okay, I know what the answer to that is. But generally speaking, I don't do a lot of future thinking. Not a ton of future thinking.
It's all that damn yoga, Erin. I'm telling you.
It's the yoga, but it's the yoga matched up with trauma. Like it's the yoga and like having my life so completely overturned.
I understand. So then, because your importance changes.
Yeah, where I'm like, oh, a large part of what I lost was an idea of what my life was going to be. And that is something, that is the part of it. Like, I can't change losing people. That's just a reality. I can change how attached I am to ideas and dreams of what my life is going to look like.
Can navigate. You navigate who you are as a person in regards to inevitable loss. Wow.
And that is yoga. Like, yoga is a lot, when you hear the words non-attachment in yogic philosophy quite a bit. And a lot of people get kind of caught up on that. They're like, but I'm attached. And I'm like, well, I choose what I'm attached to. I'm very happy to be attached to the people in my life, willing to suffer till the cows come home over that one. But there's a lot of other things I'm not as attached to because it's not important to me on that scale. But what I want is I want eventually to live in a place where I have either a backyard or like a certain amount of land where I can have a dog and a cat who are best friends, and a duck and a couple of chickens, and maybe an alpaca or two as well, because they are fascinating and really good animals to keep, much better than llamas. I've learned a lot about alpacas lately.
And you can have the... Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. They all poop in the same place. I didn't know that. Like, they won't, like, you could let them in your house and they're not go poop in your house. They're like, go have a place where they poop. But there's that aside. I just want, and I want to be able to walk out my door and pick the herbs from my garden and get the food from my garden, because I love gardening. Is a deeply healing and important place for me. I need to get my hands in the dirt. Like, it's everything goes away when I'm gardening.
I just had a vision of you, that movie Chocolat, and the scenes where she's out there with the long dining table and the good friends and the drinks and the beautiful evening in her garden. And that's how I'm picturing. I shall send you that book about summer when you get your place. Let me know.
I want it. So that's like, if I have a, and I have no idea when or how or what that's going to look like, or if it's going to be in a city or out of a city. I want more quiet. I want more nature sound and less city sound in my life. I downgraded by 6 million people by moving here. So that was a good shift. And here smells like the ocean and cedar and cherry blossoms and just heaven on a stick. So that's all amazing. And right now where I live, I have a lot of street noise. So that's something like the next place, it could be in the city. And ideally it would actually be out of the city. So I would have even more opportunity to be in tune with and in good relation to land and nature.
And also alpacas in the city might not work as well.
Yeah, I mean, we can have chickens, so that'd be good. But I do want, like, I really want I love interspecies love. So that's why I want like a cat and a dog to be best friends. I want cats. I want like chickens and ducks and all. I want everybody to be hanging out together.
I love that. You got to have a bird. You got to have a budgie.
Yeah.
You got to have a budgie.
And well, I would have all the birds on the outside because I feed birds even on my apartment. I have one of those stick-em feeder boxes. I'm like, come to me, my little ones.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's coming back to kind of that first question that you asked me, I guess, in a way, is like, it's that kid who always had horsey hands, is what my mom would call them, and like was always playing outside and in the dirt, and that's a big dream.
But we come full circle. I just have this, I know it's not, I say 10 because for me it was 10, but I think there's this age where we all have our self full of dreams and excitement and who we really genuinely are before the world gets a hold of us. Yeah. And I think when we get older, the challenge is to come full circle back to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wholly agree with that, because I feel like so much of what I'm inviting into my life now, and what I try to, I've been very bad at it for the last 5 months, but what I try to do is find like that work-life balance so that life is winning on that balance scale, more of that, because
yeah, I'm so guilty.
Yeah, well, it's untraining. Like to me, a lot of my learning in the last like 5 years of my life, I would say, has been about recognizing the choices that I have made in my life that haven't actually been my choice, because I was never presented with another option. So I was never presented with an option that wasn't about doing the next, getting the next, doing the next, getting the next. Oh, it's this ladder. Keep going, keep going. And as that ideology has been presented to me and disseminated as a capitalist colonial structure kind of ideology, that it's recognizing like, and also recognizing in my own body, when do I feel that settledness? When do I feel that like quiet joy, that joy that like 10-year-olds, when you're just like, oh, and everything's, and where is the magic? Like, that's why I said unscheduled time allows the magic to in. Yeah. And I feel like what I'm trying to do in my life as much as I can is to unschedule my time so that life magic has a place. Work magic has a place. Like if you're scheduled within an inch of your life, work magic doesn't get to have a place either, because you don't have time for anything new to pop in, any cool thing to pop up. So to kind of
from intrinsically
get off that train and go, that's a choice if I join that train, as opposed to that's something I just got like led into and I didn't make that choice. You know?
Okay, now I've promised everyone to be end. Thank you so much for joining. Adam stepped away. We do have one very last question we're going to end the call on. Sean says, can you train alpacas to make clucking sounds?
That would be awesome. I have no idea what sound they make. They were very quiet when I visited them at the alpaca farm, so I don't know.
That's a good one. I love that one. On that note, Erin, thank you so much for joining us. It's been pure bliss and joy and good timing. because I shall now have that voice in my head going work-life balance.
And that's different for everybody. Like that might be time with your budgie. That might be time playing an instrument. That might be time, like everybody's is different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Erin. This has been amazing. Someday you must come back and join us again.
Yes, absolutely. Anytime. Thank you for having me.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for the awesome questions.
Bye.